UNGA adopts resolution for immediate and unconditional Gaza ceasefire. New Syrian Prime Minister guarantees minority rights. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Welcome to World Today with me, Daryl Baptist. The reopening of the Danish embassy in Malaysia marks a pivotal milestone in the bilateral relations between the two nations, especially as Malaysia gears up to chair the ASEAN summit next year. Denmark's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, highlighted the growing importance of ASEAN as a bloc for Europe and the global role Malaysia continues to play. He noted the long-standing ties between Denmark and Malaysia, which date back to Malaysia's independence. According to him, Malaysia is a major exporter of semiconductors and raw materials to Europe, and therefore Denmark needs trusted partners worldwide. Rasmussen expressed his hope to reopen free trade negotiations with Malaysia, as there is tremendous potential. The minister emphasized Denmark's commitment to enhancing cooperation with ASEAN under Malaysia's leadership next year, leveraging Denmark's roles as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council and an active member of the European Union. He was speaking to reporters at a reception hosted by the Danish ambassador to Malaysia, Kirsten van Kilder Berner, in the federal capital. The United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza, a symbolic gesture rejected by the United States and Israel. The resolution, adopted by a vote of 158 to 9, with 13 abstentions, urged an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire, wording similar to a text vetoed by Washington in the Security Council last month. At that time, Washington used its veto power on the Council to protect its ally Israel, which has been at war with Hamas in the Gaza Strip since October last year. The resolution, which is non-binding, also demands immediate access to widespread humanitarian aid for the citizens of Gaza, especially in the besieged north of the territory. The Gaza resolution also calls on UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to present proposals on how the United Nations could help to advance accountability by using existing mechanisms or creating new ones based on past experience. A second resolution calling on Israel to respect the mandate of the UN agency supporting Palestinian refugees, UNRWA, and allow it to continue its operations, was also passed by a vote of 159 to 9, with 11 abstentions. On the topic of Israel, its forces have conducted a first withdrawal from a town in South Lebanon and were replaced by the Lebanese military under a ceasefire deal. This was confirmed by the U.S. Central Command leader, General Michael Eric Kurilla. Eric Kurilla was present at the implementation and monitoring headquarters during the first Israeli Defense Forces withdrawal and Lebanese Armed Forces replacement in Al-Qiyam as part of the ceasefire agreement. He said this is an important first step in the implementation of a lasting cessation of hostilities and lays the foundation for continued progress. Meanwhile, Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati said the stationing of troops in the Al-Qiyam and Marjayoun areas represents a fundamental step towards strengthening the army's deployment in the south in implementation of the ceasefire decision. Israel stepped up its military campaign in South Lebanon in late September after nearly a year of cross-border exchanges. A ceasefire came into effect on 27th November and is generally holding, though both sides have accused the other of repeated violations. As part of the agreement, the Lebanese Army and United Nations peacekeepers will deploy their staff in southern Lebanon as the Israeli army withdraws over a period of 60 days. In a related development, Malaysia welcomes the adoption of two significant resolutions pertaining to the inherent rights of Palestinians at the 10th Emergency Special Session of the United Nations General Assembly. The Foreign Ministry said the resolution, entitled Demand for Ceasefire in Gaza, signifies the international community's unwavering call to end violence, ensure accountability, and achieve lasting peace and stability in Gaza. The ministry also stated that the resolution, entitled Support for the Mandate of UNRWA, attests to the international community's unequivocal support for the agency's indispensable role and mandate, as well as a clear commitment to countering any attempts to undermine and terminate its operations. Malaysia urges the international community to operationalize these resolutions in entirety and without delay. Syria's new Prime Minister, Mohammed al-Bashir, said the alliance that ousted President Bashar al-Assad will guarantee minority rights. He also called on the millions who fled the war to return home. Assad fled Syria after a lightning offensive spearheaded by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group and its allies, which brought to a spectacular end 5 decades of rule by his clan. With Assad's overthrow plunging Syria into the unknown, its new rulers have sought to assure religious minorities that they will not repress them. Mohammed al-Bashir, whom the opposition forces appointed as the transitional head of the government, said he will guarantee the rights of all people and all sects in Syria. Bashir also called on Syrians abroad to return to their homeland, saying that Syria is now a free country that has earned its pride and dignity. He noted that Syria's new rulers would be willing to work with anyone so long as they do not defend Assad. Bashir, whose appointment was announced on Tuesday, is tasked with heading the multi-ethnic, multi-confessional country until 1st March. After decades of rule by the Assads, Syrians now face the enormous challenge of charting a new course as they emerge from nearly 14 years of war.
Getting that permanent seat on the UN Security Council.
On a related note, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the world body is totally committed to supporting a smooth transition of power in Syria after the ousting of Bashar al-Assad. He said it is the duty of the United Nations to do everything to support the different Syrian leaders and to make sure that they come together and are able to guarantee an inclusive transition in which all Syrians can feel that they belong.
The UN is totally committed to supporting a smooth transition of power with an inclusive political process in which the rights of all minorities will be fully respected and paving the way towards a united, sovereign Syria with its territorial integrity fully re-established.
Guterres also responded to Benjamin Netanyahu's statement that the Golan Heights belong to Israel for eternity. He noted that the Golan Heights are occupied by Israel, but that occupation is not internationally recognized. As such, he said that eternity would not solve the problem of the violations of the law. Since Assad's ouster, Israel, which borders Syria, has sent troops into a buffer zone on the east of the Golan Heights, in a move the UN said violates a 1974 armistice. South Korean police have said that security guards were blocking a raid on President Yoon Suk-yeol's office to investigate his brief imposition of martial law, with the opposition party accusing the presidential staff of illegally protecting an insurrectionist. Yoon is already banned from foreign travel as part of an insurrection probe into his inner circle over the dramatic events of 3rd to 4th December that stunned South Korea's allies. Several hours into a standoff at the presidential office, police said the special investigation team is continuing to discuss the seizure and search of the presidential office with the presidential staff and security. The main opposition Democratic Party warned it would file legal complaints for insurrection against the presidential staff and security if they continued to obstruct law enforcement. The defense Defense Ministry, National Police Agency, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials said they launched a joint investigation unit to conduct a more swift and efficient investigation into the martial law case. Yoon previously said his declaration of martial law was intended, in part, to safeguard South Korea from the threats posed by North Korea's forces and eliminate anti-state elements. Up next, China expands military drills around Taiwan. Stay with us. Welcome back. Somalia and Ethiopia have reached a deal to end nearly a year-old bitter dispute following hours of Turkish brokered talks in Ankara. Hailing it as a historic agreement, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he hoped the deal would be the first step towards a new beginning based on peace and cooperation between Somalia and Ethiopia. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed flew into Ankara for the latest round of talks following two earlier rounds that made little progress. The two neighbors have been at loggerheads since landlocked Ethiopia struck a deal in January with Somalia's breakaway region, Somaliland, to lease a stretch of coastline for a port and military base in exchange for recognition. The move sparked a fierce diplomatic and military row between Ethiopia and Somalia, which branded the deal a violation of its sovereignty. According to the text of the agreement released by Turkey, the parties agreed to leave behind differences of opinion and contentious issues and resolutely move forward in cooperation towards common prosperity. They agreed to work closely together on commercial arrangements and bilateral agreements that would ensure Ethiopia's reliable, safe and sustainable access to the sea under the sovereign authority of the Federal Republic of Somalia.
First priority for our people.
Malaria mortality has fallen back to levels seen before the COVID-19 crisis. However, the World Health Organization called for faster progress against the disease that killed nearly 597,000 people last year. In a new report, the World Health Organization estimated that there were 263 million cases of malaria worldwide last year, 11 million more than a year earlier, while the death toll remained relatively stable. However, it said in terms of mortality rate, it has come back to pre-pandemic numbers. In 2020, disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic led to a sharp increase in malaria-related mortality, with an additional 55,000 deaths counted that year. Since then, the total number of deaths from malaria, which is caused by a mosquito-borne parasite, has gradually shrunk, as has the mortality rate. Meanwhile, the estimated 2023 mortality rate in Africa of 52.4 deaths per 100,000 population at risk still remains more than double the target level set by a global strategy for combating malaria through 2030. As such, the WHO insists that progress must be accelerated. It pointed to the wider rollout of malaria vaccines as a promising development, expected to save tens of thousands of young lives each year. China has expanded military drills around Taiwan, aimed at drawing a red line for the next U.S. president. This was confirmed by the Taipei authorities, which branded Beijing as a troublemaker. A senior national security official said Beijing's biggest maritime drills in years involved about 60 warships and 30 Coast Guard vessels deployed from near the southern island of Japan in the South China Sea. The Taiwan security official said Chinese warships simulated attacking foreign ships during the drills, while the Coast Guard practiced intercepting commercial vessels as well as disrupting and blockading sea routes. According to figures from the island's defense ministry, China has also ramped up military aircraft activity closer to Taiwan, with 100 sorties detected over the past 2 days. There have also been no announcement by Beijing's army or Chinese state media about increased military activity in the East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, South China Sea or Western Pacific Ocean. The security official said that China's plans for the massive maritime operation began in October and were aimed at demonstrating that Beijing could choke off Taiwan and also to draw a red line ahead of the next U.S. administration. And now on to some tech news. Tech giant Apple rolled out major updates to its artificial intelligence offerings that integrate OpenAI's ChatGPT into its native applications, including Siri on the iPhone. ChatGPT is now integrated into its writing tools and Siri virtual assistant, allowing users of the latest iPhone or iPad to access the AI chatbot without leaving the iOS ecosystem. The move, first announced in June, marks Apple's most significant push into generative artificial intelligence. This is as the company aims to compete with rivals Google and Samsung, who have already integrated similar AI features into their Android-operated devices. The ChatGPT features fall under the iPhone maker's Apple Intelligence system, which also includes an AI-powered image editing tool and an emoji generator. The company is initially rolling out the new AI functions to 6 English-speaking countries, including the United States, Australia, Canada, and Britain. Support for 11 more languages will be rolled out gradually next year, starting with an April software update. Meta-owned Instagram said its services were back online after thousands of users experienced technical issues accessing its platform yesterday. At the peak of the outage, which started around 1:50 a.m. Malaysian time, more than 100,000 incidents were reported with Facebook and nearly 70,000 with Instagram. The number of reports had come down to over 1,000 for both apps as of 7 a.m. this morning. Some Facebook and Instagram users posted on X that they were encountering an error that said something went wrong and that Meta was working to get the issue fixed. Earlier this year, a technical issue led to an outage that impacted hundreds of thousands of Facebook and Instagram users globally. The platforms faced another outage in October, but services were largely restored within an hour. In sports, Malaysia bags 3 points against Timor-Leste. Stay tuned. Hello again. Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, Malaysia narrowly avoided embarrassment against the lower-ranked Timor-Leste, coming from behind to secure a 3-2 victory in their second Group A match at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil last night. Paulo Josue emerged as the hero for the Harimau Malaya squad, netting 2 goals in the second half to turn the tide after Timor-Leste led 2-1 at half-time. Failing to find their rhythm, Malaysia only registered a 1 on-goal target in the first 30 minutes. However, the national team scored the opening goal at the 38th minute mark, with Shafiq Ahmad converting a brilliant cross from substitute Fergus Tierney. However, in a blink of an eye, Timor-Leste surged ahead 2-1 at the end of the first half, punishing lapses in Malaysia's defence, with Oligar Xavier and captain João Pedro scoring during injury time. Pedro, who stood out with his swift runs on the left, posed another threat to the national defence, but his close-range shot went wide. 2 minutes later, Malaysia found the equaliser through a strike by Josue, who received a lofted pass from substitute midfielder Endrick Dos Santos. The 35-year-old Kuala Lumpur or KL City FC forward remained a constant threat in front of goal, netting his second of the night with a header from a poorly cleared ball in the 83rd minute, sealing Malaysia's first win of the campaign. Meanwhile, national head coach Pau Marti Vincente admitted that his team did not play as well as he expected in the first half, but praised his men's resilience and managed to secure their first win against Timor-Leste. He added it had been a challenging outing, especially with injuries, but commended his players for their determination and ability to fight until the end.
At the end, sometimes the things don't go your way, and then maybe mentally you get a bit not focused, and then when you don't have the clarity of thinking, then some injuries happen, and then player come in and then get injured again, and I think it was tough.
Malaysia now tops Group A with 4 points, 1 point ahead of Thailand and Singapore, who have played one match each. Cambodia are fourth with 1 point, while Timor-Leste are last without any points. Well done, Harimau Malaya. Let's hope you can keep up the winning momentum. And now moving on to European football. Bukayo Saka scored twice to fire Arsenal a step closer to the Champions League last 16 as the England forward inspired a 3-0 win against Monaco on Wednesday. Saka's brace came late in each half, and Kai Havertz struck in the closing minutes of the Emirates Stadium, or rather at the Emirates Stadium, to lift Mikel Arteta's side into third place in the revamped league phase. The Gunners have won 4 of their 6 European games this term, and with 2 matches remaining, they control their destiny in the race for the top 8 finish that guarantees automatic progress to the last 16. Clubs that finish 9th to 24th in the 36-team first phase face a playoff to determine if they will advance. With games against Dynamo Zagreb and Girona to come in January, the North Londoners will be confident of avoiding that unwanted obstacle. After a damaging 1-1 draw against Fulham in the Premier League last weekend, Arsenal's 5th win in their last 6 games in all competitions was a welcome tonic. Over in Italy, Manchester City were plunged further into crisis on Wednesday after failing to a 2-0 defeat at Juventus, which threatens their chances of reaching the last 16. A header from Dusan Vlahovic and clinical finish by Weston McKennie were enough for Juve to inflict a 7th defeat in 10 matches on Pep Guardiola's struggling City. The English champions languish in 22nd place in Europe's top club competition after having collected just 8 points from their 6 matches in the revamped league phase. That leaves City just 1 point above the bottom 12 places and elimination, with matches against Paris Saint-Germain and Club Brugge remaining. But City have unravelled in less than 6 weeks and are way off the pace, both in the domestic and continental campaign, with just 1 win over Nottingham Forest since the end of October. City now have the Manchester derby at the weekend, hardly the sort of fixture they need in the midst of this dismal form. The win snapped a frustrating 4-match run of draws for Juventus and brightened the mood among fans who have been disappointed with Thiago Motta's opening few months as coach. In Germany, substitute Ferran Torres struck twice in 10 minutes to earn Barcelona a 3-2 win at Borussia Dortmund and seal their place in the knockout phase of the Champions League. Rafinha opened the scoring for Barcelona on 53 minutes, latching onto a Dani Olmo pass on the counter, but Serhou Guirassy equalized 7 minutes later from the penalty spot. Torres, who replaced the ineffective former Dortmund striker Robert Lewandowski, tapped in a rebound with 15 minutes to play, only for Guirassy to again haul Dortmund level. With the hosts pushing for a first ever victory over Barcelona in their 5th attempt, Lamine Yamal fed Torres on a fast break and the winger drilled the ball past Gregor Kobel. The win ensured Barcelona will reach at least the playoffs while putting them in pole position for a top 8 berth and direct qualification for the last 16. Dortmund suffered their first loss at home in all competitions this season, sliding down to 9th in the Champions League table. Still in the world of football, Saudi Arabia will host the world's most prestigious game, FIFA World Cup, in 2034, while the 2030 edition will be held in Spain, Portugal and Morocco, with one-off matches in 3 South American countries. The combined proposal from Morocco, Spain and Portugal will see the 2030 World Cup take place across 3 continents and 6 nations, with Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay hosting celebratory games to mark the tournament's centenary. Uruguay held the first World Cup in 1930, while Argentina and Spain have also staged the tournament. Portugal, Paraguay and Morocco will all be first-time hosts. 4 years later, Saudi Arabia will become the second nation from the Middle East to host the quadrennial tournament, 12 years after neighbours Qatar staged the 2022 edition. In 2023, FIFA said that the 2034 World Cup would be held in the Asia or Oceania region, with the Asian Football Confederation throwing its support behind the Saudi bid. Australia and Indonesia have also been in talks over a joint bid, but dropped out. The unprecedented organization of the 2030 tournament will involve 3 continental confederations in Europe, Africa and South America, while the next World Cup in 2026, the first involving 48 teams, will take place across North America. Swiss swimmer Noe Ponti set a new world record in the men's 50-meter butterfly on Wednesday at the 2024 World Aquatics Short Course Swimming World Championships in Budapest. After falling behind early, Ponti powered his way over the final 25 meters to take gold and lower his world record time to 21.32 seconds. Canadian swimmer Ilya Karun touched the wall second at 21.67, with Dutchman Niels Korstanje just 100th behind in third at 21.68. On the women's side, American Regan Smith set a new championships record in the 100-meter backstroke, winning gold with her time of 54.27 seconds, while countrywoman Catherine Burkhoff finished in 54.93 to earn silver, and Canadian Ingrid Willem was third in 55.75. The meet at Duna Arena continues through Sunday, 15th December. And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. In our top story today, UNGA adopts a resolution calling for immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza with overwhelming support. Do join us again on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM tonight at 8:30 p.m. for more. Or you can stream us, or rather stream our bulletin online on RTM Click's website and mobile app. That's it for now. I'm Darrell Baptist. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Goodbye and have a pleasant afternoon ahead.